The crimson explosion painted the void in brilliant light as the last Devourer ship fell apart. Admiral Tamin gripped the command rail aboard the GCS Harmony, his eyes fixed on the tactical display showing empty space where moments before metal death had lurked. 3 long years. 3 years of watching worlds consumed, fleets destroyed, countless lives lost. Now it was over. "Fleet status report," he commanded, his voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on his shoulders. "All ships confirming destruction of the final Devourer vessel," reported Communications Officer Una, her bioluminescent patches flickering with excitement. "Losses minimal. The trap worked perfectly, sir." Around them, the bridge erupted in subdued celebration. Officers from 12 different species shared smiles, tentacles touching in friendship, energy beings pulsing with joy. The Vorthan Admiral straightened his forearms, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. This coalition had been impossible just cycles ago. Natural enemies united by a common threat. "Signal all ships," Tamin ordered. "Operation complete. The galaxy is free. The..." Words felt strange on his tongue. Free. After so long, the concept seemed foreign. But as he watched diverse ships positioning for the journey home, hope bloomed in his chest. The aquatic Delphians were already singing their victory song, their whale-like vessels resonating in harmony. The crystalline Zerathi flickered messages of celebration through light patterns. Even the gaseous Nephilim had formed elaborate patterns in space, their excitement visible as colored wisps. "Admiral?" Una's voice cut through the festivities, uncertainty replacing her earlier joy. "Sir, we're detecting something on long-range sensors." Tamin's 2 hearts skipped a beat. "Devourers?" "No, sir. Unknown energy signatures. Multiple large vessels approaching from the edge of the system. They're big." The celebration died instantly. Officers rushed to their stations as the tactical display shifted. Red dots appeared on the edge of sensor range, moving with purpose toward their position. As they drew closer, the computer struggled to process their size. "By the ancients," whispered Navigator Kojin, her usually steady hands trembling. "Admiral, each of those ships is 3 times the size of our dreadnoughts." The bridge fell silent, save for the hum of systems. Tamin felt cold despite his heated uniform. Had they triggered something? Awakened a greater threat by destroying the Devourers? "Sir," Una's voice was barely a whisper, "they're hailing us." On screen, the display flickered, showing empty space. Then, impossibly, 12 massive shapes dropped from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were dark as space itself, their hulls covered in what looked like flowing metal. No design in the Galactic database matched them. "Incoming transmission," Una announced, her patches now dim with fear. "Put it through." The screen filled with an image that made Tamin's jaw drop. A human face, smooth skin, dark hair, wearing a uniform of blue and white. Behind him, a bridge that looked both primitive and impossibly advanced stretched into the distance. "Greetings," the human said in perfect Galactic standard, his accent strange but understandable. "I am Admiral Jin Wu of the Terran Defense Force. We've been monitoring your conflict with the Devourers." Tamin found his voice, though it cracked slightly. "Impossible. Earth is under quarantine. Your species lacks faster-than-light capability. Our records clearly state..." The human admiral raised one hand, a gesture Tamin recognized from old xenobiology texts. It was meant to stop speech, though the context seemed respectful rather than commanding. "Your records are correct," Jin Wu replied. "You quarantined primitive humans 300 standard years ago. However, you failed to monitor our development afterward. On the tactical display, the human ships moved with fluid grace despite their enormous size. They took positions around the Galactic fleet with precision that made their own formations." "Look, amateur. We've been watching," Jin Wu continued, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. "The Devourers have been troublesome neighbors of ours for quite some time. We decided it was finally time to introduce ourselves properly to the Galactic community." Tamin felt his world shift. Earth, quarantined Earth, protected by a simple barrier because they were deemed too dangerous for Galactic society. "But these ships, this technology..." "How?" he whispered, then cleared his throat. "How is this possible?" The human's smile was cold as space itself. "Admiral, you've fought valiantly against the Devourers, but you've only faced their outer scouts. We've come to finish what you started. I suggest you stand aside." The celebration was over. The real questions were just beginning. Admiral Tamin stared at the human face on the screen, his forearms gripping the command rail so tightly the EHO metal began to bend. This couldn't be real. Humans were barely spacefaring when the quarantine was established. They still used chemical rockets. Their computers were the size of rooms. Yet here was Admiral Jinwoo, speaking flawless galactic standard as if he'd been born to it. "Your last contact with Earth was 300 years ago," Jinwoo continued, adjusting something on his uniform. Behind him, the bridge of his ship curved away in impossible distances. Strange lights pulsed along the walls, and Tamin saw humans working alongside beings he didn't recognize. "We've been busy." "Show us your ship," Tamin demanded, surprising himself with the boldness. Around him, his bridge crew leaned forward, equally fascinated and terrified. The view shifted, revealing the exterior of the human vessel. It was magnificent and terrifying. The hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Weapons that defied understanding dotted its surface. And it was enormous, 3 times the size of anything in the Galactic fleet. "The TDF Retribution," Jinwoo said with obvious pride, "one of 12 in our fleet, built specifically for this day." Communications Officer Yuna's patches flickered rapidly. "Sir, our computers can't identify any of their technology. It's like they're using completely different scientific principles." "That's because we are," Jinwoo answered, apparently hearing their private conversation. "You see, Admiral Tamin, isolation has its advantages. While you were building your great civilization, following your careful rules, we were learning from everything that came our way." The tactical display showed the 12 human ships spreading out. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, as if controlled by a single mind. But that was impossible. No species had achieved that level of unity. "What do you want?" Tamin asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Jinwoo's expression hardened. "The same thing you wanted, the destruction of the Devourers. But unlike you, we know their true nature." A new window opened on the screen, showing star charts. Red marks indicated Devourer positions throughout known space, but there were far more than the Galactic fleet had ever detected. "You fought their scouts," Jinwoo explained. "Small groups sent ahead to weaken you. The real Devourer fleet is building strength beyond the Galactic Rim. They've been using you as target practice." Navigator Kojin gasped. "Those attacks on border worlds, training exercises," Jinwoo confirmed. "They've been studying you, learning your tactics, your weaknesses. Every battle you won taught them something new." Tamin felt sick. Billions had died in those attacks. Entire civilizations wiped out. And it had all been a test? "But you know this because," Tamin began, "because they tried the same thing with us. 73 years ago, a Devourer scout fleet entered the Sol system." Jinwoo's smile was sharp as a blade. "They wanted our iron, our carbon, our water. They saw a young species ripe for harvest." The human admiral gestured, and the image changed to show Earth. But it wasn't the primitive world from Galactic records. Cities of glass and metal covered the continents. Strange structures orbited the planet like metal rings. "They underestimated us," Jinwoo said quietly. "We didn't just defend ourselves, we followed them." The bridge was silent. Tamin could hear his own breathing. "You followed them?" he whispered. "Through the void. We learned their language. We studied their ships. We captured their technology." Jinwoo's eyes gleamed. "And then we began to hunt them." The screen showed battles in deep space. Human ships pursuing Devourer vessels between the stars. The tactics were brutal, efficient, and completely unlike anything the Galactic fleet had attempted. "We've been at war with them for 70 years, Jinwoo explained. "A shadow war. They never knew we were following them, destroying their forward bases, capturing their scouts." "My God," Tamin breathed, using an old human expression from the language files. "You've been fighting them longer than we have." "Fighting them?" Jinwoo laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "Admiral, we've been winning." On the tactical display, the human ships began to move. Their formation was unlike anything in the Galactic fleet manuals. It was aggressive, predatory. "Now," Jinwu said, his voice harder than steel, "we finish what we started. The last of their scouts are here. After that, we go after the real fleet." Taemin realized with growing horror that everything he thought he knew was wrong. The galaxy's greatest threat wasn't the Devourers. It was what humans had become while fighting them. The human ships moved like predators stalking prey. Admiral Taemin watched in horrified fascination as the TDF Retribution and its 11 sister ships spread out in a pattern that made no sense according to galactic naval doctrine. But it worked. "Sir," Navigator Kojin whispered, "their formations, they're hurting them." She was right. The remnants of Devourer scouts, 5 ships that had hidden behind a moon, were being driven into an inescapable trap. The humans weren't just attacking, they were orchestrating a hunt. The first human ship, TDF Vengeance, fired a weapon that defied physics. A beam of pure darkness shot out, and where it touched the Devourer's shields, reality seemed to crack, like broken glass. The enemy ship's protective barriers simply ceased to exist. "Impossible," breathed Weapons Officer Sung Ho. "Their shields are adaptive. They learn from each attack. That's why it took us so long to defeat them." But the humans weren't using the same weapons twice. As the Devourers adapted to the darkness beam, the Retribution fired something entirely different. A swarm of microscopic objects that passed through shields as if they weren't there and began tearing the hull apart from inside. "Admiral Jinwu," Taemin called over the communication channel. "Your tactics, how do you know them so well?" The human admiral's response came as his ships cornered a fleeing devourer. "Simple, Admiral. We've had 70 years to study them." A third human ship, TDF Persistence, unleashed hell. Not the hell of simple energy weapons, but something far worse. The space around the devourer began to fold in on itself, compressing the ship into an impossibly small point before releasing it as scattered atoms. Yuna's patches had gone completely dark with shock. "Sir, our sensor analysis is complete. The humans, they know exactly where each Devourer ship will try to run before they do it." It was true. The Devourers were behaving with machine precision, following programmed escape patterns, but somehow, the humans had anticipated every move. They waited at each exit point like spiders in a web. "Tell me," Taemin demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Tell me how you know all this." The screen showed Admiral Jinwu's face, calm despite the battle raging around him. "They came to Earth first," he said simply. "September 15th, 2231 by our calendar. 37 ships. They expected easy prey. Another Devourer died, this one consumed by what looked like living fire that ate through its hull like acid through flesh. We were still using fusion drives then," Jinwu continued. "Still thought the speed of light was absolute. Still believed war was something humans did to other humans. The last Devourer ship was trapped between 4 human vessels. It fired desperately, its weapons striking the human shields and doing nothing. The energy simply flowed around the human ships like water around rocks. They harvested 3 of our cities," Jinwu said, his voice carrying old pain. 60 million people, melted them down for metal and organic compounds." His eyes hardened. That was their mistake. The trapped Devourer ship suddenly stopped firing. It began broadcasting something in binary. Surrender protocols, the galactic computers recognized. "We don't accept surrender," Jinwu stated flatly. The TDF Retribution's main weapon powered up. They didn't when they came for Earth. The final blast was different from all the others. It didn't destroy the Devourer ship, it unmade it. The vessel simply stopped existing, leaving behind empty space. 70 years, Taemin said quietly. "You've been fighting them for 70 years. Not fighting them," Jinwu corrected. "Hunting them, learning from them. We followed their raiding parties, captured their ships, took their technology apart piece by piece. The human ships regrouped with the same impossible precision they'd shown throughout the battle. Dead Devourers floated in space around them, or what little remained. Every ambush they set taught us their patterns," Jinwu explained. "Every weapon they used became part of our arsenal. Every tactic they employed was catalogued and countered. Captain Minji from the heavy cruiser Silver Star spoke up. "Sir, if you've been studying them for so long, why reveal yourselves now?" Jin Woo's smile was sharp as a blade. "Because the scouts are gone and the real enemy is coming. This was just practice for what's beyond the galactic rim." Taemin felt his world shift again. Everything they'd fought, everything they'd suffered, it had all been preparation for something worse. "You mean," he began. "The main Devourer fleet," Jin Woo said quietly. "The one that makes these scouts look like gnats. They're coming to finish what they started. And now that their scouts are dead, they'll know we're ready for them." Through the view screen, Taemin could see the human ships preparing to depart. They moved with purpose, like wolves who had tasted blood and were eager for more. The silence. On the Galactic command bridge stretched like pulled metal. Admiral Taemin stared at the human admiral on screen, his four arms trembling slightly. Around him, officers from 12 different species looked equally shaken. "What did you just say?" Taemin whispered. Admiral Jin Woo stood on his ship's bridge, hands clasped behind his back. The strange lights of human technology pulsed around him like a heartbeat. "You heard correctly, Admiral. This entire war, you've been fighting shadows." Communications. Officer Yuna's patches flickered rapidly. "Sir, we're receiving data transmissions from their ships. Battle records, star charts, ship movements." The main display filled with information that made Taemin's head spin. Star maps showing Devourer, positions going back decades, battle reports from conflicts in systems the Galactic fleet had never heard of, ship designs that had evolved through hundreds of encounters. "This is impossible," breathed Navigator Kojin. "According to this, you've been fighting them for 70 years. 73 years, 2 months, and 16 days, Jinwoo corrected, since they first came to harvest Earth." A window opened on the display showing video records. Human ships engaged in battle with Devourers between stars no galactic citizen had ever visited. The tactics were different from anything in the Galactic. Military manuals, aggressive, brutal, effective. "Every Devourer raid you stopped," Jinwoo explained, "was a ship fleeing from us. Every victory you celebrated was against forces we'd already weakened." Taemin felt sick. The attack on Velen, Prime, the siege of Nexus Station. "They were running from us," Jinwoo confirmed. "Straight into your territory. We could have warned you, but—" He shrugged. "The quarantine. You made it very clear humans weren't welcome in galactic space." The video logs showed battle after battle. Human ships pursuing Devourer fleets across the void. Not defensive actions, but aggressive hunts. The humans had made war into an art form. "But your technology," protested Science Officer Dr. Hana from her station. "You shouldn't have this level of advancement, not from a quarantined species." Jinwoo smiled coldly. "Isolation has advantages, Doctor. While you were forming committees and following protocols, we were adapting. Every Devourer ship we caught gave us new technology. Every battle taught us new tactics." Another window opened, showing human shipyards, massive construction bays where captured Devourer technology was being integrated into new designs. Human ships that looked nothing like the primitive vessels from 300 years ago. "We reverse-engineered their hull materials," Jinwoo explained, "figured out their shield harmonics, learned their language, became better at being Devourers than they were." The display shifted again, showing interstellar maps. Red lines traced Devourer fleet movements over the decades. But now Taemin could see the truth. The Devourers hadn't been expanding into galactic space. They'd been retreating from something. "You've been herding them," Taemin realized, "for decades, pushing them toward us. And not intentionally at first," Jinwoo admitted. "We were just following them, hunting them. But when we realized you were in their path, we decided to see how you'd handle the challenge." Captain Sungmin of the destroyer Fast Wind spoke up angrily. "You let billions die." "Billions were already dead," Jinwoo replied without emotion. "The Devourer's plan was to harvest the entire galaxy. We've been preventing that. But we needed to know if the galactic species could defend themselves." The truth was overwhelming. Everything they thought they knew was wrong. The galaxy's greatest military victory had been, what? A test? A final exam? "The real Devourer fleet," Taemin said slowly, "the one beyond the galactic rim, is 10,000 times larger than what you faced," Jinwoo confirmed. "They sent scouts first, small forces to test and weaken you. The main invasion fleet is coming now. New data flowed to the Galactic computers, images from beyond known space showing a mechanical armada that defied comprehension, ships the size of moons, constructs that looked like metal planets. We've been preparing for them, Jinwoo said, building weapons, training fleets, becoming the monster necessary to kill monsters. The human ships around them suddenly seemed different, not just advanced, but designed for a specific purpose, built by a species that had spent decades learning how to kill one particular enemy. Why reveal yourselves now? Taemin asked. Jinwoo's expression softened slightly. Because the real war is about to begin. And despite everything, we'd rather have allies than mourners. The display showed the galactic rim where stars began to dim. Something vast was moving between them, blotting out light as it approached. The main Devourer fleet will arrive in 37 days, Jinwoo announced. The question isn't whether you'll fight with us or against us. The question is whether you'll fight with us or die alone. Taemin looked around his bridge at species that had spent centuries avoiding conflict, preferring diplomacy and trade. Now they faced an enemy that understood only consumption. Humanity had spent those same centuries becoming the perfect predator. There was no going back. The teleporter platform hummed as Admiral Taemin materialized aboard the TDF Retribution. The sensation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. His molecules had been taken apart and rebuilt in seconds. Such technology shouldn't exist, but here he stood, alive and whole. Lieutenant Hye-jin waited for him, her standard-issue uniform crisp and clean. She was young, perhaps 30 by human years, but her eyes held an age that spoke of terrible knowledge. "Welcome." "Aboard, Admiral," she said in perfect galactic standard. "The Admiral is waiting in the observation deck." She led him through corridors that defied physics. The walls seemed to stretch endlessly, yet his steps brought him to destinations within minutes. Gravity shifted smoothly as they walked, sometimes on floors, sometimes on what should have been walls. The technology was so advanced it felt like magic. "How?" Taemin asked, gesturing at the impossible architecture. "Folded space," Hye-jin explained, simply. "We learned it from the Devourers. They used it in their ships. We made it better." They passed windows showing the void outside. But instead of stars, Taemin saw something that made his blood freeze. The space beyond was full of movement. Shapes too large to be ships, too geometric to be natural. "The staging ground," Hye-jin said, noticing his stare. "One of many. The main Devourer fleet uses them to prepare for invasion." The observation deck was vast, its transparency revealing space in all directions. Admiral Jinwoo stood before a massive display showing star charts, but these weren't normal star maps. They showed things beyond the galactic rim in the darkness between galaxies. "Admiral Taemin," Jinwoo greeted without turning. "Look." The display zoomed in on a region of space that should have been empty. Instead, it showed structures, massive metal constructs the size of star systems, ships that dwarfed planets, and movement, endless, purposeful movement. "This is the main Devourer fleet," Jinwoo explained. "What you've been fighting are their scouts, training exercises. The real enemy makes your worst nightmares look like children's toys." Taemin stared at the images, his 4 hearts beating rapidly. The scale was impossible to comprehend. "How many?" "Conservative estimate, 50 million ships. That's just what we can see. The constructs alone could consume 100 galaxies." Lieutenant Hye-jin approached with a datapad. "Sir, the scans are complete. The main fleet will arrive in 36 days, 14 hours. Jinwoo nodded grimly. "Thank you, Lieutenant." He turned to Taemin. "This is why we revealed ourselves. This is why we've been preparing." The display shifted, showing Earth, but not the primitive world from ancient records. This Earth was encased in metal rings, surrounded by space stations, orbited by fleets of unimaginable power. 70 years of preparation, Jinwoo said quietly. Every technology stolen from the Devourers, every weakness discovered, every tactic refined. We've become exactly what we needed to become. Taemin watched as the display showed Earth's moon, hollowed out and converted into a massive weapon. Mars had been stripped for materials. The asteroid belt was gone, turned into thousands of battle stations. You've militarized your entire system, Taemin whispered. We've militarized our entire species, Jinwoo corrected. Every human child learns to fight. Every citizen understands the cost of peace. We have no choice. The Admiral handed Taimin a device, sleek, metallic, warm to the touch. Coordinates to every Devourer staging ground we've discovered. Battle plans, weapon designs, everything we've learned. Taimin took the device with trembling hands. Why? Because your choice is simple, Jinwoo said. Join us in the hunt or wait for them to find you. There is no third option. The display showed the galactic rim again. In the darkness between stars, something vast was moving. The main Devourer fleet was coming, and when it arrived, the galaxy would burn. Your species avoided conflict for millennia, Jinwoo continued. You chose diplomacy, trade, peace. Those are admirable qualities. His voice hardened. But the Devourers don't negotiate. They don't trade. They consume everything. Taimin looked around the observation deck. Human crew members worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. They weren't afraid. They were ready. We've been preparing for this war since before most of your species learned to speak, Jinwoo said. We've sacrificed everything, our culture, our peace, our innocence, to become what the galaxy needs. The celebrations were over. The real war was about to begin. And humanity had been waiting for it all along. Taimin clutched the device tighter. The weight of choice pressed down on him, but looking at the approaching darkness, he realized there was no choice at all. The galaxy would unite or die, and humanity would lead the charge either way.